welcome you with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the day's top business stories. Prime Minister Modi's mega employment push sets 18-month deadline for the government to recruit 10 lakh people. Modi's decision comes amid the opposition's frequent criticism on the issue of unemployment. Market ends lower in volatile session. Sensex falls for third straight day. Nifty below 15,750. Oil and gas drags realty gains. Rupee still above 78 versus the dollar. Crypto sell-off continues as Bitcoin hovers around $22,000 mark. Bitcoin has lost over 50% since the start of the year. The value of the crypto market dropped below $1 trillion. Wholesale prices continue on their steady march upwards. Clock in at 15.88% in May. That's a record 30-year high. Tata's begin the consolidation of their airline assets. Competition Commission clears acquisition of AirAsia India by Air India. The low-cost airline will be merged with Air India Express. Now, if you want to travel to Europe or the US for a holiday, you better already have a visa because you're not going to get a new one anytime soon. And if you haven't booked your air tickets yet, it'll be a really costly affair for you. That is, if you manage to get a seat. This is what revenge travel has resulted in this summer. Long waiting time for visas, skyrocketing air ticket prices, crowded destinations, and even more crowded airports. That's what international travel is all about today.
International travel has returned with a vengeance. Cooped up at home, psyched out by COVID talk, people are stepping out again, spreading their wings far and wide. While domestic travel to the hills these summers is still in vogue, it's the international travel destinations which are attracting most Indians. Be it the Alps, the streets of Paris, the gondolas of Venice, or the vast spaces of the United States, outbound travel has gathered pace like never before. And this has created unprecedented issues.
Big concern that has come with resumption of commercial international flights, that is delay in visa processing time. In fact, we spoke to India head of VFS Global, who told us that because of influx of applications under the tourist visa category and the pent-up demand because it's the revenge travel season, there has been a valid delay in the visa processing time.
India scrapped its 2-year ban on international air travel on 27th of March this year, leading to a virtual explosion in foreign travel. Travel associations say that against the 9 lakh outbound travellers in March to June in pre-pandemic 2019, the number this year could be as much as 20% higher. World's largest visa facilitator, VFS Global, says it's getting around 25,000 visa applications a day in India. An off-the-cuff calculation shows a whopping 2 million Indians have applied for a visa since the travel curbs were lifted. This has put an immense pressure on embassies, which are still in COVID mode, working with skeletal staff. Some of the embassies, in fact, have suspended issue of visas. Now, problem number 2. Even if you manage to get a visa, air tickets have become prohibitively expensive. Aviation fuel cost is up to 30% since January. And reports say ticket prices have jumped 20% in just 2 months. And then this tweet by banker Uday Kotap's son Jay Kotap, describing the horrors of airports in the United States, which is also seeing a spurt in travel in the absence of the right infrastructure. With Karishma Asudani in Delhi, Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
We're now joined by Aditya Agarwal, CFO, ClearTrip.com, Laura Holsworth, Managing Director and Vice President, Asia Pacific at Booking.com, Pranav Sinha, Head, India and South Asia, VFS Global, and Atul Thakkar, Director, Anand Rathi Investment Banking, on Travel and Tourism Report. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let's get started and get a sense of which way this industry is going. Laura, where are you seeing the maximum amount of bookings? Where are you seeing a heightened interest in travel around the world?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you as well. I think you're exactly right. It is one of the most exciting times in travel globally. And in India right now, we are just seeing the demand is so incredible. We've seen, obviously, earlier in the quarter, it was, there's still the Omicron feeling and the challenges there. But since then, it has really been significant amounts of growth. And we're seeing, even on the books for the summer, 15% more than we were seeing the same time in 2019. We refer a lot back to 2019 as kind of the holy grail of the travel year, the last time it was significant. And so we compare very much to that. And yeah, we're already 15% above for the summer bookings. So we're excited. We're excited to see India travelers domestically and also internationally now as borders of restrictions have lifted, high vaccination rates. It's the perfect time.
Right. Okay, but what about visas? Pranav Sinha, the pandemic has impacted the travel sector for a good 2 years of time. What are the top destinations people are now choosing to travel to? And then, of course, I'll also ask you on the kind of issues they're facing with their visas.
The pandemic didn't do well for anyone. And of course, the travel was outbound out of India was restricted for literally 2 years. Restart of travel happened in phases. With many international borders also closed, gradually opening phase-wise. Initially, we saw students and very specific category applications that were allowed to move outbound. Internationally, also, many countries were only accepting very specific categories for very, very specific reasons. Family members joining those that are abroad already. Those were the initial ones. But now, as you also mentioned, ever since March 27th, when the international flights were also allowed by DGCA, we are also witnessing a very high uptick in terms of outbound travel. Markets that are being favored, as it has always been, even pre-pandemic, UK, the Europe, Schengen member states, USA, Canada, I think across everywhere, even Southeast Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, there is travel happening many locations. So the outbound travel definitely looks very promising.
Okay. Laura, how much of the travel then is outbound? What are you seeing on your platform? We just heard from Pranav as well, but are you seeing traction when it comes to inbound into India at this stage at all?
We are. We're just starting to see that picking up. It's certainly still a very domestic heavy market, and globally we're still seeing a similar trend. But really we are seeing inbound travelers, and we're seeing them coming from destinations like the UK, the US, UAE, Germany, Australia. So we're seeing these travelers coming back, and there's obviously that demand that's been there of these travelers that want to be back in India and experiencing all the delightful things we have here.
Pranav, are appointments or slots easily available for tourist visas, or is there a huge wait list for those wanting to go abroad, especially for the Schengen area and the USA?
So it's both. It's both actually. There's a lot of pent-up demand from the last 2 years. Many have been, for very specific reasons, also wanting to travel. We did see a very high number of students applying last year between June and September. We are possibly hoping the same numbers apply this year as well, which seems to be in that direction. But yes, revenge travel, I mean, tourists in itself, Q1 last year, we are already seeing double the numbers Q1 this year. Okay. So there is definitely a lot of intent to travel. I mean, if we personally also given a choice, we would definitely want to do a holiday abroad. For those that have been wanting to travel, not been able to do that for the last 2 years. In terms of appointments, VFS Global role is very specific to provide a system to get an appointment. How many appointments are allowed to be opened is completely a prerogative of the respective governments. Now, for example, UK, one could get an appointment within 4 to 5 days. Yes, it's a longer wait for other governments. That's primarily because of what they allow us to accept, and also a very high uptake in the last few weeks, months itself, with the airlines opening up, a lot of opportunities and options also available for one to travel. So it's, from what you mentioned, it's actually both put together. There is a pent-up demand. There's also revenge travel, as we would like to term it, in this year. And the appointment slots remain as to what we are asked to be governed. But then the message is very clear to all travelers. Please do plan to travel, to apply for your visas much in advance. There is some wait in terms of getting an appointment and thereafter getting your visas processed. Hence, it's always advisable to probably try and plan your travel in advance.
Aditya Agrawal, what's leading to the massive spike in airfare prices? Everyone's having to reassess their holiday budget. I mean, we know that crude is playing spoil sport, but this kind of, spike in prices, what's really causing it?
I think in the last 3 months, we have seen pretty much never before seen kind of prices in the Indian aviation industry. Average prices used to be between 4,500 to 5,000. Went up to more than 6,500 in May. It has come down slightly in June. It's come down by about 5 to 10% in June. But the main reason is sort of external factors, right? I think we've seen obviously the oil price spike to more than $120 with all the geopolitical tensions. So that's the single biggest driver why the prices have gone up. And yeah, we are sort of hoping that it's a short-term trend and it starts coming down like we've seen in June already.
Aditya, when do you see this normalizing? The pricing pressure, yes, it's come off about 5 to 10%, but when do you see a further rationalization? Are airlines going to be doing anything to mitigate this kind of pricing pressure?
So we've already started seeing it come down, right? So in June, we've seen almost a 10% price correction as compared to May, right? So some of this is obviously seasonality. May is also a peak month for summer travel with vacations and holidays. So we've already seen a seasonal correction, and if globally oil prices continue to come down, then we will see that come down very fast, right?
Okay, so it's really all about those oil prices. Laura, what are you making of the current pricing environment? Is it having an impact on bookings?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge, and it's all coming at the same time. If we look at oil prices, we're obviously having an impact on airfares. The demand is outweighing the supply right now. As capacity is still increasing. Most airlines are not back to full capacity. They're still dusting off their planes and bringing back crew. So these two things coming hand in hand is having an impact, but we're not seeing it dampening demand at all. We are seeing still that desire to go. And so when it comes to stabilization, I think as capacity comes back online, that will be the biggest potential stabilizer. But right now the demand is there and travelers are not put off by changes in pricing.
All right, so one part of it, of course, is also bringing capacity back. And the other question then, Atul, and let me bring you in here, is really for the outlook on the travel industry. Given the kind of pent-up demand or the revenge demand that we're seeing in this case, the fact that the market is becoming less price sensitive, they're still choosing to go ahead with their travel plans despite those spiraling airfare prices, pushing, of course, for visas, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Do you see the travel industry continuing to grow now that it's back at those pre-pandemic levels? Do you see this kind of boom sustainable?
Yeah, so, let's look at it this way. Everybody has a wallet share for travel, depending on your overall budget. Now, if in the last 2 years you have not spent, then irrespective whether the price hike has been by 10 to 15% or not, you will tend to go and rejuvenate. You will require to take your family out. Now, what type of travel you are going to do, it depends on person to person's requirement. Or, if you were planning to go, let's say international, but the international waters are still not opened in some of the countries, you will settle with one of the best holidays in India. So I think overall, 2022 will be the revenge year for travel and tourism, where you will see a boom irrespective of whatever is happening globally, whether it is the price hikes or the war scenario. People will want to move out.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us on this show today to discuss all the trends in travel and the kind of momentum we're seeing despite some of the obstacles this summer. Stock markets gave up early gains in a highly volatile session to slip into red and closing at a fresh 11-month low as negative global cues kept up the pressure. Nifty closed 42 points lower at 15,732 after breaching the March low of 15,671. Sensex slipped 153 points to 52,694. Losses were seen in financials, oil and gas and FMCG shares, pulling headline indices lower, but gains in select IT, pharma and metal counters did limit the downside. Broader markets also failed to hold on to intraday gains. Bajaj Auto, IndusInd Bank, Hindalco, ONGC and Tech Mahindra, some of the top losers in today's session, coming up there on your screen. On the other hand, the rupee ended flat, no major change there after hitting a new low yesterday. It's still at that 78 level as investors remain cautious ahead of the US Fed policy decision. The carnage in the crypto market gained momentum with no near-term respite in sight. Top cryptocurrencies suffered the worst price drop of 2022 as Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Cardano and many others slipped up to 20% today. Let's go across to Sakshi Batra to understand what's leading to this sharp sell-off in cryptos.
Well, that's right, Abha. Crypto markets are facing a huge sell-off. Talk about Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency out there. It also slipped below the $20,000 odd mark in the intraday levels today. From the all-time high levels, Bitcoin has slipped from nearly $69,000 to under $20,000 now. Look at the kind of fall we've seen. It's the biggest drop for Bitcoin in 1 year that we've seen so far. For the top cryptocurrencies as well, the year-to-date fall also ranges anywhere between 50 to 85%. Now, talk about the market value of the entire crypto market. That has slipped below the $1 trillion mark as well. Remember, this market cap was somewhere over $3 trillion back in the month of October. So just in a span of 6 months, we've seen a very, very sharp fall coming in. So what's really leading to this huge sell-off? Well, equity market crash, inflation fears, recession fears, and the aggressive rate hikes, all of them contributing. And plus the huge sell-off over the last 2 to 3 days, we've seen $200 billion worth of cryptocurrencies being sold, all of them contributing to this sharp sell-off.
Thank you for that, Sakshi. Now, wholesale inflation has hit a 30-year high in May. Even as figures released yesterday showed a dip in consumer inflation, WPI continues to march ahead, logging in at 15.88% in May. Inflation was at 15.08% in April and 13.11% a year ago. The price rise has stayed in double digits for 14 months in a row now. While the wholesale prices of food increased by 12.34% in May, non-food articles were up 24.14%. Crude and natural gas prices zoomed nearly 80% versus last year. 1 million jobs in the coming 18 months. That's a promise Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made in the run-up to his third prime ministerial bid in 2024. The promised hiring will fill up long-term vacancies across the central government ministries and their departments. With the announcement comes the same day the Indian Armed Forces got their Agnipath recruitment scheme.
A surprise announcement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi by way of a tweet put out by the Prime Minister's office at 9:27 a.m. this morning. The tweet announced that the Prime Minister had ordered the hiring of 1 million people in a mission mode by December 2023. The announcement comes nearly 2 months after an exercise was undertaken by the Cabinet Secretariat to identify vacancies in the central government.
कि सारे भारत सरकार के डिपार्टमेंट्स में जो पद खाली हैं उनमें भरने का इसको शुरुआत की जाएगी और 18 महीने भी इसलिए रखा गया है कि इसको जल्द से जल्द सभी विभागों को निर्देश दिए गए कि जितनी जल्दी हो सके आपको भर्तियां शुरू करनी है। जैसे मैंने भी अपने डिपार्टमेंट में जाके वापस कितने रोजगार हमारे यहाँ पे खाली हो सकते हैं उनको भरने के लिए जानकारी जुटाकर और उसको आगे बढ़ने के लिए काम करेंगे।
ये दर्शाता है कि नए भारत के निर्माण में अब युवा शक्ति का बहुत बड़ा योगदान होगा। जब युवा शक्ति हमारी सशक्त होती है, जब युवा की क्षमताएं सरकारी कामकाज में आती है तो उसका बहुत बड़ा लाभ होगा।
Business Today TV took a look at the government's replies in the parliament to identify which ministries and departments are the most understaffed. As of 1st March 2020, the central government had 8,72,243 vacant posts out of a sanctioned strength of over 4 million. More than 78,000 recruitments were done in 2020 and 21. Of this, the largest vacancy was in civil defence, where as on March 2020, 2,47,502 posts were vacant. Railways with 2.37 lakh vacancies came next. Ministry of Home Affairs had nearly 1,29,000 vacancies. The other ministries were Post and Revenue.
The jobs announcement will serve a dual purpose. While there will be a cost involved, it will also be an economic multiplier and will also boost the nation's growth. It will also significantly blunt the political opposition, which has made unemployment and jobs a rallying cry during parliamentary and assembly elections. With camera person Premchand Mishra, Polami Saha in Delhi for Business Today.
The World Trade Organization ministerial currently underway in Geneva has turned into a battle between the developed and developing nations. The latest point of contention between the two blocs is the proposed waiver of patents on COVID vaccines, drugs and equipment for large underdeveloped and poor swathes of the globe. The proposal, mooted by India and South Africa nearly 20 months ago, was diluted to include only vaccines.
On the day 3 of the WTO MC12, that is the Ministerial Conference 12th, there was a stiff discussion on the fisheries sector. In that meeting, Mr. Piyush Goyal, the Commerce Minister of India, told the gathering, 164 nations, that countries in both hemispheres allowed their giant fleets to plunder the oceans for several decades, leading to high unsustainable fishing. The issue here is that these nations want subsidies provided to Indian fishermen to eventually go or to be at par with the rest. What India is contending, that India has always been a small fishermen's nation who do sustainable fishing. For almost 61 days in a year, that's what the minister told the conference, that for almost 61 days in a year, Indian fishermen don't take to the seas, because that's the time the fishes breed. India also objected, through Mr. Piyush Goyal, that in India, the subsidy given to each family per year is $15, whereas it is $42,000 in some, $65,000 in others, and even $75,000 per year per fishing family in a country like Denmark. Meanwhile, on the issue of TRIPS waiver for vaccines, the big nations and the parent countries of pharmaceutical giants are tooth and nail opposing India's proposal to waive off the IPR. Tomorrow will be the last day of the meeting, and there are very little hopes of a major breakthrough.
The auction of IPL media rights have fetched nearly 48,391 crore rupees. The three-day auction ended this evening with Disney Star bagging rights for TV broadcasting for 23,575 crore rupees. That's 57.5 crore rupees per match for 410 matches. Viacom 18 got the digital rights for 20,500 crore rupees at 50 crores per match. Viacom 18 also bagged the C package for an amount of 3,258 crore rupees. Package D is being shared by Viacom 18 and Times Internet for 1,058 crore rupees. That's all we could pack into the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.